All right, welcome back to VMworld 2017. Tim Smith at tsmith_co on Twitter, and I am joined with another Tim.
I'm Tim Davis. I'm at ALDTD on Twitter.
And we were just chatting a little bit about NSX because he's kind of an expert in the field, at least compared to me.
I guess.
So, coming from my perspective, I'm not very familiar with NSX. So to me, my first thought is, oh, it's a way I can stretch layer 2 to another place. But it's a lot more than that.
Such a small part of it, yeah.
So I hear the word microsegmentation. What is that?
Microsegmentation is the way that we do security in NSX. And what we mean by that, we mean something very specific.
Okay.
We mean that we are putting a layer 4 stateful firewall on the VNIC of every single one of your virtual machines.
Okay.
And that is basically run as a kernel module in your ESXi host. And it runs in kernel at the speed of memory.
Now, since we're doing all these firewall rules, do I need to keep track of IP addresses, or am I referencing these
Not
by
at all.
virtual machine?
So since we are connected to vSphere and vCenter, we're able to read object IDs,
Nice.
such as VM name or even what kind of OS it's running.
Okay.
And you can also create rules with regular expressions. You can say, I want all of my VMs with Win- in the name to have the Windows policy.
Oh, neat.
Except, and then you can take your templates and throw them out or something like that.
Nice.
So you can do static inclusions and exclusions as well as the dynamic policies.
So the first thing that comes to my mind, coming from a backup company with microsegmentation, is ransomware is not going to go through. I mean, if I've got every virtual machine firewalled or segmented, at least in the logical groups, but what are some other use cases, or have you seen out there that customers are using?
So compliance and regulatory is one of the biggest things that we've got. I would say about 60% of our customers that purchase NSX do it for security.
Okay.
And doing things like PCI compliance and HIPAA compliance are probably some of the biggest use cases we have.
Nice. So I noticed we had the VMware Cloud on AWS announcement, and that's running vSAN and NSX.
That's correct.
And so are we able to stretch then our on-premises NSX install up? Is it all centrally managed between the two facilities?
So today, with GA, that's going to be two separate instances.
Okay.
And in future iterations, that's going to tie together.
Great. And then we also mentioned, so VMware Cloud on AWS was one of the announcements, but there was an announcement over App Defense, and I am completely ignorant on App Defense.
So App Defense is our way of actually digging into the virtual machine and doing introspection to look at the actual processes running with an application. So the way that this works is it's detect and respond. So we take an application and we go in and we say these 5 servers are part of application A. What that does is then it starts reading through the application. It starts watching it.
Okay.
If you've got an application that does a full cycle in a week, let it run for a week. If you've got one that runs one giant report once a quarter, let it run for a whole quarter. Then we take a snapshot of that and we start enforcement.
Okay.
If anything even deviates from what would be considered normal activity, it can then go off and respond the way that you say it does. So
Nice.
It can do anything from a simple alert to it can actually lock the VM and stop it in its tracks.
Now is that pausing the VM, or is it blocking it from the network?
So it's a little bit of both. You can pause the VM, but you can also tie it in to NSX for microsegmentation policy to where you can cut it off and quarantine it from the network.
And now, as somebody who likes Log Insight Manager, is there plans to have this tied into Log Insight?
I believe there is going to be a plan to be able to do syslog export to Log Insight.
I would imagine so, because it seems like everything out there.
And I know
is gonna
NSX for
tie in.
sure. We do full Log Insight integration with the NSX packs.
Okay. So what do you think would be the minimum scope of NSX to the maximum? Where are you seeing it in the customer base? I mean,
Oh man,
obviously large enterprises can really benefit from it, but what about some of the medium businesses?
we've got an extremely large commercial business. We've got an entire series of SEs that are doing nothing but commercial accounts. And I mean, these are guys that are doing 5 host clusters with NSX for small business, all the way up through thousands of hosts for our hyperscale enterprise customers.
And what do you find when you go into an organization where they have a dedicated network team? Is it at first a little bit of apprehension, and then after it's explained,
It
does
honestly
click?
depends. Obviously, we've got some other vendors that are the biggest in the industry for networking, and they kind of have gone through in the past and said, hey, VMware wants to take away your job and give it to the VMware guys. which is simply not the case
Yeah.
because BGP is still BGP, OSPF is still OSPF. So you still need a network, guys. It's just a different tool. So
Exactly.
once we kind of go through some education, talk about exactly how we do it, and also explain our role-based access controls, so that you can set it up
Oh,
where
nice.
networking can only do networking, security can only do security.
Nice.
It kind of eases the tension a little bit, and they end up becoming very receptive.
Okay.
Because whether it's NSX or not, software-defined networking is the way to go.
It's like vSAN, right? I mean, you're not putting storage guys out of a job. You're just
Changing the tool that they do
changing
their
the tool.
job with.
So, last question then. What is your favorite thing about NSX, or the software-defined networking and security package that VMware has?
I like how easy we make it.
Okay.
I mean, we can get an NSX POC, including full microsegmentation and full network virtualization, done in a couple of hours.
Oh, nice.
Now, of course, if it's a really large-scale customer, then there's going to be a pretty intricate design. But actually getting it into production and deploying it, it can be an extremely easy process depending on it.
So, not the last question. It's an OVA package, right?
Yes.
And then
yeah, the NSX
managed?
manager is just one OVA that gets deployed and connected, and then that NSX manager has all of the OVA templates for all the little subcomponents.
Nice.
So when it gets connected to vCenter, it makes all those API calls and does all that deployment for you based on whatever settings you select.
Okay. And where can everybody find more information? Obviously, VMware.com.
VMware.com. We've got so many different blogs out there on NSX available. I did a V Brown Bag series, the NSX Micro Ninja series, so you can find that on the V Brown Bag website as well.
I'll be sure to put a link to that in the description below.
Fantastic.
And also a link to this gentleman's Twitter. And
I'm on there a lot.
be sure to click subscribe. Thanks.